If you're feeling really stuck in your life, if you're not going for the things that you want to go for, if you're not trying the things you really want to try, if you're not taking the risks that your heart is calling you to take, then chances are you're struggling with some perfectionism. Now, before you skip to the next video and think, oh, no, I'm not a perfectionist, like, no, that doesn't apply to me. Wait a second. Because if you ever fear failure, if you ever fear being judged, if you ever worry a lot about what other people think about you, then chances are you struggle with some perfectionism, at least to a certain degree. So we're going to be talking about these 3 beliefs that perfectionism likes to kind of implant into our head that causes us to get all kinds of stuck. If you're new to me and this is the first time you're here, I am so glad you're here. And if you're not new to me, you're one of my regulars, one of my people, then I am so glad that you are here. Take a sec, introduce yourself in the comment section below so that I can say hello to you, whether you're new or not. I always love connecting with you guys. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Kristina. I'm a registered clinical therapist, a master coach, a speaker, a teacher, an online course creator, and I am also the creator of the Breakthrough Coaching Program. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I work to help heart-centered go-getter men and women break through the crap that is holding them back so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day and have the things in their lives that their heart is calling them towards. And perfectionism gets in the way of that. Now, just let's talk about perfectionism and anxiety, because perfectionism has its roots in anxiety. And typically when we're talking about anxiety, we're talking kind of the everyday anxiety that a lot of people struggle with to greater or lesser extents. There are 2 offshoots of that everyday anxiety. There are the worriers and there are the perfectionists. And then there's some among us who are both. And are worriers, if you're a worrier, you tend to really worry about bad things happening. You tend to have maybe a little more fear than you would like to have. That fear really holds you back, or that you spend a lot of time thinking about really scary things or catastrophic things, or just worry about bad things happening in general. If you are a perfectionist, then you tend to worry a lot about what other people think. You tend to maybe worry a lot about your physical appearance, what your house looks like, how well you do at your job, like how meticulous your work is. You tend to really freak out about failure or try to avoid any failure or any kind of criticism. And even just the thought of that, me saying that, is kind of making you anxious. So those are kind of our 2 offshoots of regular old everyday anxiety. And we're going to be talking more about the perfectionist side today and how that really keeps us stuck and holds us back. It's really interesting because not everyone does relate to this whole being perfect thing. But as I said at the beginning, if you are holding yourself back in any way because you are worried about what someone's going to think or someone's going to say, you worry about failing, you worry about not meeting an expectation, then you are getting all wiggy and weird about it, then that's a problem. And some of you have heard me talk about him before, but Alfred Adler, who is one of the forefathers of modern psychology, he was a contemporary of Freud. Everyone knows who Sigmund Freud was. Not everyone has heard of Adler, but I have done a lot of studying of Adler's theory and Adler's psychology, and I so agree with so much of what he said. And he said that many of our biggest problems, many of our biggest neuroses and issues in life are stemmed from this fear that we are imperfect, that we are not good enough. And he said that instead of trying to be more perfect, what we need to do is harness and gather and just really sit in the most important kind of courage that you can get. And that is the courage to be imperfect. And now think about that for a second. How many of you are doing these things in your life and thinking you need to be a certain way and accomplish certain things and have certain stuff to be able to appear to others that you have it all together, that you're successful, that you're doing well, that you are perfect? And how much of that is causing so many of your biggest struggles? One of my favorite favorite quotes, and I put this one up in Instagram, and I will link that here in the description below. And it was by one of the Stoics. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was Seneca. But it says, the task that is hindering your task is your task. So many of us think that not being perfect is the thing that's getting in our way. And what we need to do is we need to be more perfect. We need to be, have everything more, just be more successful, that we need everything to be better, that we need ourselves to be better, that we need to look better, that everything needs to be in order all the time. And then we will feel good about ourselves. Then we will be happy. Then we will be able to like our lives. But if we go with this quote, that the task that is hindering your task is your task. So the thing that is hindering your task is this belief that everything needs to be perfect. So that is your task, is debunking that belief and letting yourself have the courage to be imperfect. And so, what are some of these beliefs that perfectionism tells us? And the first one is that once you are perfect, people will like you more. Hands up if you have ever thought that I just need to be more perfect. I just need to look better. I just need to be more successful. I just need to have accomplished more. Then people will like me more. And so maybe you put on this mask, that you pretend to be this person, that has it all together and has it all figured out and totally knows what they're doing all the time, and you never show any vulnerability and you never let anybody in, and you keep people out and you kind of keep people at a distance because you think that the more perfect you are, the more people are going to like you. And let's look at that for a second, because it actually makes no sense, because we keep people away with those masks that we put on. We are actually oftentimes, maybe intentionally or semi-consciously or unconsciously, pushing people away with our perfection because we are not letting them in. We are not letting them know who we really are. And people don't connect to perfect. You don't connect to perfect. You might admire people that appear to have it all together, but you don't relate to them. You don't connect with them because you know you're not perfect. And so you can't see yourself in them. And so you probably would find it really hard to be vulnerable with them because you're like, I don't want to tell them that I've got this stuff kind of falling apart in my life, or, I struggle with this stuff, because they're not going to be able to relate because they're perfect, which they're not. Just really good at pretending. And so asking yourself, does perfect draw you to other people? Do you feel connected to perfect people? And the same goes for you. That whole backwards belief that people are going to like us more when we're perfect. People are going to like us more when we're real, when we are authentic, when we're not putting on any masks and pretending. The next lie that perfectionism tells us that really keeps us stuck and holds us back is, when it comes to us, that once I am perfect, I will like myself more. Once I do everything perfect, once I am perfect, once I feel all the perfect feelings, once I have the perfect life, when I've got everything in order, everything all under control, all my ducks in a row, then I will like myself more. And this is a really interesting one, because we think that there's this destination of good enough. We think that there's this destination that we get to where everything is in order, everything is perfect, and then we will feel good enough. But you've tried it. You've had goals. You've said, once I reach this goal, once I reach this level, once I achieve this or accomplish this or do this, then I'm going to feel good about myself. And you do, and you get there, and you might feel good for a hot second or two, and then the bar rises. And you think, oh, maybe it was just a little bit more than I needed to do. Maybe that wasn't quite it. Now I need to do this. And so the bar gets raised. And so we're always sort of chasing and striving for this moving target. And we keep putting our happiness and fulfillment and feeling good about ourselves, or keep putting that off. We get stuck in that when then. When I have this, when I do this, when I accomplish this, when I look like this, when I achieve this, then I will be happy and fulfilled and feel good about myself, and life will be great. And you have gotten there. You have gotten to those thens, and it didn't pan out. Good enough is not a destination. Good enough is a decision. Deciding that I am good enough now. Who I am, what I am, is good enough now. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not always learning and growing and expanding and moving forward, but not in an attempt to hustle for our worthiness, as a natural expression of being a human being, that we are wired for growth, that we are not happy sitting at home, checking out, watching Netflix, kind of tuning out of life. That's not happy, that's depression. Participating in life, learning and growing and expanding for the sake of it, because that's where that tension, that healthy amount of tension, not the like extreme tension where we're like hustling and trying to become something so that we can feel good enough, but that tension about what can I learn? How can I grow? How can I stretch? Because that is satisfying. That feeds us. So it's not about achieving perfection. It's about learning and growing along the way and accepting ourselves for who we are at every point. The next one, once you feel all the perfect feelings, you will have arrived. You will finally be a good person. You will finally be a healthy person, an emotionally healthy person, when you only are positive and grateful and happy all the time. And a lot of sort of the pop culture self-help stuff wants to get us to believe that you just have to be happy, you just have to think positive, everything just has to be fine all the time. And don't get me wrong, I am all for positive thinking and, counting our blessings and being grateful, but there is a time and place. And it's not all the time and it's not everywhere. The goal in life is not to learn how to feel only half of our feelings. The goal in life is to not say that if I need to get to this point where I only feel happy, where I only feel joyful, where I only feel grateful, where I only feel positive all the time. And if I ever feel any of the uncomfortable feelings, any of the negative emotions, then I'm failing in some way. You can't feel half your feelings unless you are going to numb and repress and avoid or turn yourself into a robot. There's no such thing as getting to this point where we feel only the good things. It doesn't necessarily mean that we stay in destructive behaviors or destructive emotions, that we stay in destructive places, but we change our relationship with our uncomfortable feelings. We learn how to create space for those feelings. We learn how to accept ourselves, how to be compassionate and kind and understanding towards ourselves for being human beings that have feelings about things, that have quote unquote negative feelings about things, that struggle. And that's where the difference is that we accept ourselves as human beings. We're not perfect beings. We are human beings that have all the feelings. And if you let yourself, and I'm not talking about wallowing in or playing the victim or, just sort of sitting in the stew of our negative thoughts and emotions. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about creating space for them, acknowledging them, letting ourselves be with them instead of trying to numb, avoid, or repress them or think that we are failing somehow for having them. Letting ourselves be imperfect. What would that be like? What would that be like if you let yourself be imperfect? Does that feel scary? Does that bring up some stuff? Let me know in the comment section below. So if after watching this, you now realize that you've got some perfectionism going on, then first of all, I want you to know that you are not alone. And we are going to talk more about that in just a second. But I also want you to grab my free download. It's a 10-minute guided mindfulness audio exercise that I'm going to put the link to in the description below. And you can grab that and you can listen to that. And what that's really going to do is it's really going to help to switch your brain around so that you're not getting so caught up in all of these anxiety and perfectionism provoking thoughts and feelings. It's going to allow you to take a little bit of a step back and not get so pulled into them. So make sure you do grab that. And you guys, talking about perfectionism is something that does hit close to home. It's something that I've had to do my own work around. And something that still comes up for me sometimes. And you might be thinking oh, Juliet, you're not a perfectionist. Your videos here on YouTube, they're not fancy. They're not these big, crazy productions. They're pretty basic. So how can you say you struggle with perfectionism? And I want you to know that that the way that these videos are is extremely intentional. And it was really hard for me to do at first because I look around on YouTube and I see all these other people with all of these really fancy videos and these fancy graphics and all of this production stuff that takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of planning. And yes, I plan my videos, but I don't sit and rehearse them for hours on end. And if I insisted that they were going to be perfect, then I wouldn't do them, because some of you know this. I have and run 3 businesses and I have 3 small children. So if I insisted that it needed to be this like level of perfection, this high caliber of production quality, I wouldn't do it. I would get too overwhelmed. I would dread it because I would feel like, oh my gosh, this is what I have to do every single week. And that is so overwhelming. And I wouldn't do it. And so if I'm going to sit here and ask you to take imperfect action, to let yourself do it, even if it's not going to be perfect, and put yourself out there anyways, then you better believe that I am going to have to put my money where my mouth is and do it as well. So, thank you for being here, even though these videos aren't perfect. I thought that getting you this information, sharing this stuff with you, helping you move through this stuff was more important than fancy graphics. So thank you for showing up, even in my imperfection. I appreciate you and I love having you here. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it out if you think that there's some other people in your life that are getting held back with these perfectionistic beliefs. Give it to them so that they can help work through this as well. And come and join my Facebook group, goodformegroup.com, full of the most kind, compassionate, encouraging, smart, heart-centered go-getter men and women. Goodformegroup.com, and I will see you in there. Until next time, take good care.